Everyone, Greg Sullivan here. We're going to make a quick tutorial on how to create a cool asteroid in Lightwave 9.3 using just nodal displacements. I've already started here. As our base, we're going to use a sub-patched tessellated sphere. And we're using a tessellated sphere because it's got these consistently sized and distributed polygons. It's not ideal that they're all triangles, but it's not really going to harm us in the end for what we're doing. It'll all end up squares by the time the sub-patcher gets done with it. If you don't know how I created this, it's just simple Shift-O, then N for numeric. That's how you'll bring up the options panel for creating spheres, and you'll be able to switch that to tessellated, leave the setting at 4, and you'll be fine. All I did after that was sub-patch it using normal sub-patches, not Catmull-Clark's, and gave it a surface name of Asteroid, saved it, and now I'm going to send it off to layout. Alright, here we are in layout. I'm just going to switch to perspective view while I work. And as you can see, we just have a perfectly smooth sphere here. Nothing much to it. And we want to change that. So let's start by going to the Properties panel, P, and over to the Deformation tab. And let's edit some nodes. Sorry, I've got to drag everything on from off the screen because I'm working in such a small space. Let's add a scale from Math Vector Scale and plug the result of that into input. And let's add a spot info and plug that into vector. I plugged the geometric normal, I meant to plug in the smooth normal, into vector. That means whatever we plug into this scale here will be scaled along the smooth normal and plugged into our displacement. Right now, for some reason, all it's done is make our sphere much bigger. It's not very interesting. Let's add a math scalar multiply and plug that into scale here. All this does is multiply A times B. You can either use whatever you want to plug in here, or we can set a value. Under B, we're going to set 0.5. It's a good starting point. That'll multiply whatever we plug into it by 0.5 and give us a better degree of control later on as we work. And now let's add a hetero terrain node from 3D textures. We kept our sphere at 1 meter across when we created it, and that means what we see here is roughly what we'll get because these preview spheres are also at 1 meter. So plug the color into A. Remember, we set the value of B already at 0.5. So by plugging color into A, we're multiplying whatever we do here by 0.5 and scaling it here. Now, let's go and take a look at what we've got. It's starting to look pretty asteroidy. Pretty cool. Switching to texture shaded wire, you can see that we really don't have all that much geometric density for adding details. And also when we turn up the density, we're going to find an unpleasant surprise. So let's take a look at what I mean. Go to your Geometry tab under Object Properties and change your Display Sub-Patch to something higher. 10, 15, 20, whatever your system can keep up with. See what we did there by adding all the additional geometry. Go into wireframe real quick to show you. Look at all that geometry. Is we introduce more detail from the hetero terrain node. It's not actually doing exactly what we wanted after all. So I'm going to go here, double click on the hetero terrain node. I'm just going to tweak this until I like what I'm seeing. And the objective is to just get the broad shapes of an asteroid down. So I'm going to maybe turn the octaves down to maybe 4. And still too much, maybe 3. I changed the scale from 3 to maybe 5. Maybe it was better before. Maybe I'll even go the other way, to 2. Alright, that's starting to look pretty cool. We have some flat spots where the displacement isn't taking place at all. And we're going to fix that in a second here. One of the things that you'll want to change, you might want to change, is the foreground color. For some reason, Lightwave defaults that to 200, 200, 200, which is kind of a light gray. And I want it pure white for our purposes, just so we know what we're working with. So you can right-click and drag up on this color box, and it'll increase all the values uniformly to pure white. Now, what about this multiply node that we put in here? What can that do for us? We'll use it a lot more later, but let me just give you a quick demonstration. Double-click on multiply, brings up the multiplier. The A value is grayed out because we've plugged something into it, and the B value is the 0.5 we set earlier. Let's just set it to 0.1, just to give you an idea. See what it's doing? It's multiplying the value of the hetero terrain procedural by 0.1 and basically scaling it down. We can make it 1 and things get a lot crazier. Set that to whatever you'd like. This isn't work for NASA. It's just something for fun, so make it look however you like. I still like 0.5. All right, so we've, where are we in my notes here? In the properties panel, okay. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to add a turbulent noise shader now. 3D textures, turbulent noise. And we're going to plug turbulent noise here into the background color of our hetero terrain shader. And remember those little flat spots? Well, now they're being displaced by the hetero terrain. So that gives us a lot more interesting detail. And let's just muck with these settings till we get something we like. I'm going to turn this up. I'm going to turn the octaves down. Nah, I liked it better up. Maybe scale the opacity a bit and make things a little tamer. I like that. I really like where that's going. I'd mess with this more, but we're recording and you don't want to sit here and watch me fiddle with values. So I'm going to move on. You can play with these until you are happy and try other displacements. Change the noise type. Don't use turbulent noise at all. Try something completely different. It's up to you, and have some fun. Okay, at this point, I like where I'm at, so I'm going to save the scene. Just Control S. I have a rehearsal scene that I've already set up, so I'm just going to save over that. And just called it Asteroid 1 _ VOO. In this case, too, you probably should start with VOO1. And now we're going to add a node in between the hetero terrain and the an add node, sorry. We're going to add math scalar add. And we're going to add this between hetero terrain and multiply. So when I say between, I just mean we're going to disconnect this here, plug it into A, and then plug the result back into A. So this little collection of nodes up here is feeding into the A in this add. I'm just going to shrink these down so I have some space to work. And then we are going to add a gradient node. And we're going to plug the color of this into B. Okay, I'm going to show you what we're doing with this here in a second. I'm just going to set it up and then I'll walk you through it. Now we're going to add a crust node, 3D textures, crust. That's dots, I meant crust. I'm going to plug the color from crust into the input value here. Now nothing's happened because this is the input. It's feeding, and change that to white like I described earlier. This is feeding its values into this node and then as an input, and then the gradient inside is taking control. We haven't set up that gradient, so everything we put in here is just going to come out blank and nothing's going to happen. So let's double click this gradient node and start messing with it and see what we end up with. Now, at the top here, we have 0, or black, from our crust node. So black. And at the bottom of that gradient, we have white, which is the center of the dots from our crust node. So let's just try something real simple. Let's set this to a value of 1 and just make it white and see what it does to our asteroid. Everywhere that there's a dot in the crust node now sticks out like a big chunky finger of sorts. And that's not at all what we want. So let's just start messing with this gradient here. We can flatten that out. And since I know where we're going with this, I'm just going to skip ahead to the punchline without making you watch everything. Make a black node here and a black node here, anywhere you'd like, and then set another black node in the middle and set its value to white. And now you can see we're starting to get these big, long shapes. Well, set your color down to a very dark gray. Starting to look a little like meteorite impacts or meteorite, asteroid, comet impacts. I don't know. Impacts of some sort. And then you can mess with the position of these sliders on the scale here and change the harshness, the size, the just the location of these of your ridges. I'm going to set this how I had it here. I like that look. And I'm going to see if my computer can keep up with me if I turn the displacement up a little higher even while recording. So So you get a little more detail. Yeah, there we go. Okay, then we're gonna let's muck with our crust a little bit. Okay, double click on crust, bring up the crust values, and just start messing around with it. See what you like. Make them bigger, make them smaller. Maybe make the width 25. Maybe 18. Why not? There we go. That's looking pretty good to me. And go back to your gradient and mess with the gradient some. Really soften them out, make them look good. Maybe darken up this gray a little bit so they're not as pronounced, if you'd like. Don't make it too dark. They'll completely go away. Again, I could mess with these settings all day, but I don't want to bore you since you're probably itching to get playing with your own settings. So here we are. A pretty cool asteroid created in just a little while. Really do mess with the settings. I think that these comet impacts are a little too pronounced and they're a little too smooth, but you get the idea, and I think you know your way around the editor enough at this point to tweak these to your liking. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and that you can create something fun yourself, and I'd love to see what you guys come up with. For more tutorials, check out artofsullivan.com. You can check out the Halloween tutorial and what will hopefully be further parts of this tutorial where we talk about creating a comet tail, textures, maybe even hitting a planet with this thing and creating an impact crater using some dynamics. Who knows? I'm going to save my scene, and I'm going to click stop on this recording, and I will see you guys next time.